Welcome, everybody, to the Value Add Strategy Podcast. I'm really excited to welcome Pat Zingarella. Am I pronouncing that right,
Yeah,
Pat?
it's good.
All
Perfect.
right. Fellow Italian, welcome to the
Yeah.
show today, my friend.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much.
It's great having you. As you all know, the idea and the concept behind value add is we inspire entrepreneurs to move forward, cultivate that drive to never give up towards the pursuit of their dreams and living that entrepreneurial life, which isn't easy. And Pat knows a lot about that. He went through a lot of ups and downs, as I have, and as we all have who are entrepreneurs. Pat, with that, maybe we could just take a minute and just kind of understand who the man is, what your background was like, where you're from. I think you're from the Northeast
Yeah.
originally, as I am, but maybe you could tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. My name's Pat. I'm the CEO of a company called Invest Clearly. We've been around for 3 years now. And I would say actually the ability to use it for a little less than then, right? Maybe like 2.5. Yeah, I'm from the Northeast. I spent some time in Florida. My background was in corporate sales before I leaned into entrepreneurship. I would say like themes throughout my life has always been trying odd jobs ranging from hot dog carts to service-based business where I was doing consulting. So that's really my core background. I got into this business simply by attempting to solve problems that I found. I would say it was not a linear path by any means, and it's still not, but that's most of me right there.
Okay. Well, I want to get into Invest Clearly and what the platform and what the digital marketplace is all about. But you said something that kind of stuck out to me, hot dog cart.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's Can we just take a stop there and tell me a little bit about your experience with that? I'm from the restaurant business myself, so it's
All
near
right.
and dear to me.
Yeah, very fun stage in my life. It was right before I moved to Florida. And what I would do is I bought a hot dog cart on a whim one summer. I used to go outside of like a bar from 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. And what I would
Okay.
do is I would sell hot dogs outside of a bar to people coming out of the bar. And what was really fun about it is it was this place called the Upper Deck. And so it was the Upper Deck because it had two layers. And so people would be outside on the top deck. And I'd get them coming out of the bar at the end of the night. And everybody loves the hot dog guy after 43 beers. And, it was just a great situation. And then one day, the funniest thing was one day, this dude I went to high school with showed up with a rope and a shower cat. And he went to the top deck and he would took everyone's orders and would put money in the shower caddy, lowered it down. I would put the hot dogs in the shower caddy and he'd pull them back up and send them all
Nice.
around up there. Yeah. So that was a fun summer. That
That's what
was
I
my
call that's what I call efficiency right there.
yeah, yeah, it was fun. It was funny. It was just like a joke. And I sold like t-shirts and I think I sold more t-shirts than I did hot dogs, but it was just a good time.
So how does one go from a shower caddy and a hot dog cart to running one of the most premier digital real estate marketplaces out there?
Yeah, it was a long journey. I'll tell
Okay.
you that much. Yeah. Well, I got into real estate while I was working my sales job after I moved to Florida. And it was like a lot of personal investing, some active stuff. Went horribly. My first investment went absolutely horribly. It was a fourplex, and 2 days after I closed the insurance, I was all my money. I sold my employee stock plan. Pretty much everything I had went into this fourplex, and I would not recommend doing that to anybody listening.
Where was it?
That was in North Fort Myers, Florida.
Okay. Okay.
And, it was right. It was 3 months before COVID. So everybody stopped paying after that. Like 2 weeks after I closed, my insurance company said they weren't going to insure me unless I replaced the roof, which was going to be like 25 grand. It was a nightmare, but I learned a lot. From there, I met somebody who in like a mastermind group that was like becoming quickly high in the notoriety of like influencers in this space. And I went to work for that individual and was not the person he presented to be and defrauded a ton of people. And it took me about like, I'd say like 6 to 8 weeks to realize what was going on. And then I left, right? And that was the main inspiration for Invest Clearly. But then after that, I was like a sales consulting company and I was selling accredited investor lead gen. And I was thinking about becoming an LP myself. And I like couldn't figure out how to differentiate between sponsors. I didn't find everybody all in one place. And then I was seeing like parallels from this guy who I just saw like, it turns out he was fleecing people to kind of some of the behavior in the space. And I was like, all right, like that's what led to Invest Clearly, kind of like those three roads. And back up a little bit, the company I worked for in my W-2 was a software advisory company. And they had a subsidiary that did software reviews. And like I was very familiar with the company. It was where I did most of my prospecting. That was like a software review site. And so like we took the fundamentals from that and just applied it to Invest Clearly in this industry. But yeah.
So your inspiration, not to put words in your mouth, was really transparency in an opaque market where you saw people really make poor investments, not so much poor investments, but almost get duped into investing in sponsors that were unscrupulous.
It was that, and it was partially like my own behavior where I would say I like to really crowdsource information, and I'm what I would call an easy sell. Like I get on the phone every 2 seconds, someone tells me a new product feature we should build, and I'm like, that's the best thing I've ever heard in my life. We have to include it. Or every time I talk to a software provider, I'm ready to buy it. And so I knew I was looking for a backstop where I was like, how are these people really learning that they could trust? I was terrible at underwriting. And so I was like, okay, what are actually people experiencing? And I also couldn't find that. So it was like the mix. It was the lack of transparency around is this person actually like have integrity and doing the right thing? Like, I don't think everyone's out there to intentionally fleece their investors, but like, how do I know this is the right person to execute this business plan that I'm already probably subpar at analyzing myself? And so it was like all of those paths led to it. Yeah, but it was all based around transparency.
Nice. So did you start this business by yourself? Did you start it with a partner? How long did that process take? You said you bought your first duplex. I think it was 2000 or fourplex, sorry, in 2019. Here we are,
Eh.
I don't know, 7 years later, and you've got a really fantastic business. What did that process look like? And is it just you or are there others?
Yeah, so I've got a couple partners. I've got like a tech partner, and how he came into play I could tell as part of like the story. And then I've got my partner who he's taken more of like a passive role, I would say, but we kind of started it before bringing the CTO, and it was just within a couple months. But it was really interesting because I had absolutely no idea what I was doing in terms of building like a tech platform when we started. And every single thing showed me that early on.
Yeah.
Like I was used to, hey, I'm a sales guy. I'll close business for you, pay me hourly, commission, things like that. And it is completely different than you have to spend time building something. First of all, you have to spend time collecting, like validating if you think anyone actually feels the same way as you do. And then because you've got this idea, you've got this pain point, sure, it sounds good to you, but like, are other people feeling it? Like, are you missing something? Does this exist elsewhere? And then will people pay for it? And like the time to plan and build before you make that first dollar is significantly different than being any sort of like trade your time for money. Like that was the biggest thing for me. And I'll tell you one thing, our timing was way off when we launched. Like everything in terms of timing was off. But
In what
getting
sense?
so, like, I'll give you an example. Before we brought our CTO in, we engaged like a development firm with the idea, right? We came up with like this wireframe of what the product would look like. And we were like, okay, this is March, April timeframe. We will be at revenue by September 2023. Golden. Like we're going to be good. We put in a little bit of money to get it started and that'll be perfect. Well, we go through this process of like specking out the project with this development firm. They give us a proposal and we're like, this is golden. The price is perfect. We're going to have everything built and we're good to go. The day we were going to sign, we actually brought our CTO on and he looked at the proposal. He's like, you guys have to stop right now. He's like, this is an hours based contract. This is not a project based contract. Your customer journeys are extremely vague. And what's going to happen is the second you sign, you're going to provide clarity on your customer journeys and it's going to cost 3 times as much because it's going to take 3 times as longer. And we're like, all right, well, that's a good first step that we almost made a huge mistake. And then by the end of it, the firm we engaged really wasn't all that good. They left us with like an incomplete product that we had to kind of go back and build. But when we launched in October, which was a month after we expected to be at revenue, we didn't even have the features built that actually monetized, right? So like completely far off. We expected, okay, we're going to hit monetization at the end of 2023. We didn't even build those features until the end of 2024. So it was like the timing around what this actually took and what went into it from building, iterating, getting feedback. Does this work? Is this aligned to what people want? Did we overbuild things, underbuild things? It was a lot more than we ever expected.
So you kind of just launched into it. You didn't fully understand the marketplace and then you adapted, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, we were forced to. So I think we understood what people wanted and what was missing. I think the level in which we approached it, we could have done better. I'll give you an example. In the beginning, we were always going to be a review site, right? That's what we are. It's the foundation of what we are. And we were also going to provide some form of like deal directory, right? Our users want to know, can I trust this sponsor? And then what are they currently offering that I can invest in? And so the way we did this initially is we built this like intense automation that connected to the SEC. So like
Okay.
every time a new 506c filing happened, it would actually pull it onto our site. And we were like, okay, the intent behind this was we want to make sure that every dealer fund that's been launched, the GP has to put it on their profile. They kind of like can't escape the bad ones, right? Well, what ended up happening is we had 160,000 deals pulled onto our site. The data was just completely unmanageable by the time we matched it up to the GP, by the time we actually filled it out. Because if you look at like a Form D, like the SEC filing, it is not a clean cut thing of what it is. It's like, okay, the umbrella term when you file it is just commercial. It's not like value add multifamily. You know what I mean? You don't
Sure.
have that in there.
You
And
have no
so
idea what their business
you've
is.
got no idea. And so the level of effort it took to break down the filing, like by the time our VA would get through the day, like the next day would come. And so we weren't getting backwards. And we're like, okay, secondly, what's the actual value of this? Well, the value of this is essentially like you can't not talk about your bad deals. Well, isn't that going to come out in reviews anyways? I mean, won't the reviews, like the actual business value isn't disconnected from the technical value? So like we ended up dropping that. That was one of the things we just completely over engineered. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Yeah.
It does. What I find interesting about your platform, when I think about crowdfunding, and I know you're not a crowdfunding platform, but just as a moment, because I've worked with some of these groups before, I think about like a Realty Mogul, a Cadre, a Real Street. What do you think the core differentiating kind of factor between what you're doing with Invest Clearly and what some of those other digital marketplaces are doing? And is one better or worse than
Yeah.
the other, and why?
No, I think we complement them very well. So we are
Okay.
not an investment like crowdfunding marketplace, meaning
Yep.
you can't actually transact on our site, right?
Right.
Like we are a review site at our core. And so if you think about it, what we're designed to be is like the social proof behind the sponsor. So you've got maybe investment opportunities or sponsor you see on Realty Mogul, on CrowdStreet, check our site to see if they're worth investing in, right?
They're legit.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like the CrowdStreet's like they're doing their own due diligence. It's a single viewpoint into that opportunity, right? Based on someone who actually has like a financial incentive, to get them listed. You've got this objective platform that's us, where it really doesn't matter if anyone ever invests because of the site. They're going to be on our site no matter what, and people can review them no matter what, right? And so like where we see us living down the road is we have integrations that can maybe pop into the listings on CrowdStreet and Realty Mobile and things like that. But our biggest differentiator is we are completely separate from any like investment transaction or anything like that.
Okay. And you kind of get a first glimpse into these GPs. And it's not only a review platform, do you do any type of vetting per se into these GPs to understand, or it's purely review based?
Yeah, purely review based. Honestly, it's sort of the opposite. We intentionally don't vet. Number one, because we want every single person that's ever existed to live on the site. And
Okay.
then the reviews will
Speak for themselves.
be the vetting. You know what I mean?
Yep.
The reviews will be the vetting. And then alternatively, like what's to say our vetting process wouldn't be completely different than someone else? What I've seen is there's always been this like one path mind that people want from like a vetting standpoint, but it doesn't actually apply to the collective. And so we're simply crowdsourcing experience versus actually telling people like, yeah, this is good, this isn't good. We're going to put people on there and we're going to let kind of like the experiences speak for themselves.
How do you draw the reviewers in and entice them to make the reviews? What does that process look like?
That was the hardest part in the beginning. And we can go into more into like the challenges. We've got a pretty, what I would say is like flowing like network effect now that I can get into. But early on, that was really difficult, right? Like you've got a two-sided marketplace, and the only value of a two-sided marketplace is when the other side is on the platform. And so the beginning was like pound the pavement. Like I reached out to everybody that I knew that was an LP and asked them to write reviews, right? It would start out as big time favor to me. I reached out to every GP and I had to sell the dream. Like I had to find the early adopters that actually saw what this could become and how it can help them. And then from there, it kind of snowballed. And so what we would do is even today, like there are GPs out there that are requesting testimony, like reviews from their investors. That's the easiest way to do it, right? That's one prong is like we get to the LP through the GP. And what happens there is a GP will ask their investors to review them. That investor will have their money spread across 10 other GPs, and then we'll write reviews on them, right? And then I will reach out to those GPs and let them know, hey, you got a review, you could get more. This is what the platform is. And then you go from there. Alternatively, what we've seen is our review flow has sort of flipped where a lot more are coming organically, right? And what's happening is third-party content, like third-party user-generated content shows up really high in like Google search and AI. And so what's happening is people are going in, they're searching for GPs, they're asking for reviews or asking for whatever, and then Invest Clearly is showing up for those searches. So like no LP is going out there and searching for Invest Clearly. They don't know who we are, but what's happening is they're doing research on those GPs, and then
And
our
Invest
reviews
Clearly comes up. up.
Yeah, our reviews are popping up as like the answers, right? It doesn't really happen for blank profiles, but that's what happens. And then you've got this like flywheel, right? Is like, okay, maybe people will be notified based on saved keyword notifications on Google when someone writes a review and like, what is Invest Clearly? Holy crap, my investors are Invest Clearly. I should pay attention to this. Or an investor will bring up Invest Clearly to the GP and, hey, I found you on Invest Clearly. Let me look into it. And it's kind of like this endless flywheel.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I could see how it could complement some of the other crowdfunding platforms per se. So you're really not competitive because nobody's actually making an investment through your platform. Your platform isn't acting as a conduit between GPs and LPs. It's just purely a rating service, like a Yelp would be for a restaurant.
Yeah, correct. And it's driven by the LP, right? Like if we have a monetized model, but the GPs don't get any, like they can't reach out to LPs or anything like that, right? As the platform sits right now, I don't think that'll ever be part of like, we're not going to monetize connection. It's just not what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're going to build a feature where like LPs can connect with LPs. And I think there will be a level of which, hey, I can't prevent a GP from, saying they're an LP or whatever it may be. We're still figuring that feature out. But no, everything is driven. Yeah, everything is driven by the LP. So like,
I think that's a great idea. I haven't seen that before where LPs can connect with one another and, ask, what is your experience like? Me being a GP, some LPs come to us and say, hey, I want a referral. And we, freely supply those referrals. But through a disinterested third party, they could be even more legit because we're not kind of spoon feeding them with the referrals that we want. They could speak to anyone in essence.
Yeah. And that to help you too. I think there's a really hard reference calls and testimonials on your website 100% have their place. But at this point, it's like, okay, how do you disconnect yourself from this was cherry picked, right? Like an investor knows you're not going to put them on the phone with someone that had a subpar experience. And so what we're trying to do is like speed that up. It's like you can reference us as the fact that like I can't take these down. Right. Like these people went through multiple steps to prove they're an investor with me to endorse me. Go check these reviews out. It helps that. It also helps you because you don't only tap an investor on the shoulder so many times, but it gets
old.
Yeah. They're busy too.
That's an interesting feature. I like that. And I think that's just going to add to the transparency that you've already brought to the marketplace and matching GPs and LPs potentially. Let me ask you this question because I think it's very topical. It's very fluid. But when you think about, what's going on with AI, let's say Claude or OpenClaw, and perhaps looking at what's happened to some of these software companies on public markets, and not lumping you into that category, but does that concern you? Do you see that as an opportunity? How do you think about just the access of information by going to an LLM and typing in ranking sponsors, and what makes you different than, let's say, Claude or ChatGPT for that sense?
Great question. And I think it's a massive opportunity for us, and I'll explain why. We modeled this software review company called G2. I know G2 is freaking out right now about that, right? They've got millions of reviews. Software, the company that I used to work for was called Gartner. And what they would do is they would gatekeep research on technology and advice on how people should purchase technology. That's all being broken down by these LLMs. The challenge with our industry is it's like with these LLMs and this AI, what data are they sourcing for their answers? There is not much in our industry for that. Right? There's not. Like things are behind paywalls. Most of the stuff that's being provided is actually from the GP. You've got bigger pockets to a certain degree, and you've got Reddit. Right. And so like we see this as a massive opportunity because we're becoming the source for those LLM answers. And that's what we're driving into. Like, is there going to be a time where someone could type in LLM reviews on so-and-so? Yeah, totally. What we've seen happen is like the actual behavior, whether that be shock value or doing deeper research, is we'll show up in an LLM, right? And then they'll click into it and they'll start to use some of the other tools. So like I would say
become even more prevalent because you'll be able to be clicked on through an LLM.
Correct. We see us long-term as the source for LLM answers versus,
being disintermediated in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly. And I think it's because of the privacy of the industry, right? It's very difficult right now to actually get access to something like this. Sure. And you can upload your pro formas and your PPMs and your all of that to the LLMs and, knock it out. But if you say like, hey, what did an investor actually experience? Or are there reviews on these people? Like they've got Google reviews, which are wishy-washy. You've got, some people don't even do them. And so I think it's a major opportunity for us as that technology advances. It's a main strategy for us. I'll tell you that. Like our core strategy is SEO, AEO, and GEO, which is like those three things. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So kind of going back a little bit, bit. You mentioned that you started this business with partners. And for me in particular, I haven't. I've kind of done this without partners. What would you say to our listeners that are aspiring entrepreneurs that are thinking of going into business with a partner? Should they do it? Should they not do it? How do they become a better partner for their partners? Or what should they look at when identifying who a strategic partner is for them to work with to grow their business?
Yeah, totally. Biggest feedback I would say on the partnership is make sure you're getting into business with someone that actually supplements what you're not good
Not
at,
good at?
right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, like if you have two people that are knockout sales guys,
you're going to
not
butt
as
heads.
valuable. Yeah, yeah. Or even this as simple as like you're really not solving for the things you're not good at. Where I see a partnership, I've got a partner right now. He's my CTO, incredible technology, great with operations. He is driving that side of the business as I drive sales, go to market, and strategy. And so those two things are great, right? That's the big one. What is really important at the beginning in the early side of partnerships is expectations and like set them. Like the conversations may be difficult. Make sure things are laid out based on scenarios. And look, you've got to paper it all. You've got to paper it all. Mm-hmm. It's so important. And I've seen it not even just with me and other areas of life where a relationship starts out with all good intentions. Things happen, things evolve, there's separations, and it gets ugly. Like papering things makes sure there's a set like process to follow. Early days, I'll be honest with you, make sure you click with the person. You're spending a lot of time with that individual. And I would say when we were ideating in the beginning, it was a lot of just like, do I want to be around this person and spend a lot of time with this person? And like, can we have disagreements without arguments? Like it's even just happened over the weekend for me is like, we're iterating on the product right now. And I fundamentally disagreed with a feature that we're rolling out based on the usability. But like you're able to have like an intellectual conversation around it versus like you're wrong, no, I'm wrong, and it not progress. Like you've got to get the person where it's not an emotional battle, but it's all in the sake of like progression.
Sure.
Maybe
Putting
like
the business first.
Yeah, yeah. That may be hard to like target someone like that, right? I just gave a bunch of qualitative personality traits, but I would say focus on those things as much as possible.
Okay. That's great advice. Great advice. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm interested in this, just being a GP myself. You get a firsthand view of great GPs versus suboptimal GPs, I'll call them.
Yeah.
If you had to categorize, what are one, two, three core features that differentiates the good from the bad as you see it?
I will give you the one most important, more than I hear from anything else, communication, right?
Okay.
You've actually got like returns. You've got the returns. Like, are they actually hitting their projections? I will tell you, when I talk to LPs that are in rough situations, they will talk about loss of capital for 10% of the call, and then the fact that they don't know what's going on and the communication has dropped for 90% of the call. Obviously like great communication doesn't make up for getting wiped out or whatever's going on, but if communication is far away, the top topic that people will talk to me about.
That's great advice for anybody thinking of being a GP in the investment business. What I hear you saying, Pat, is you knock it out of the park, you do mediocre, you do poorly, make sure you communicate what's going on with your investors and be available to them.
That comes out in reviews too. There are plenty of reviews on there where, performance is not matching projections, but they are telling me what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what they expect to come of it. And I'm hopeful it'll get turned around, right? Like those reviews are on there. It's not just like these guys are off by one percentage point on their IRR and I don't like anything they do. No, it's the real experiences around that.
Yeah. Transparency.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. So with you personally, having the Invest Clearly platform, seeing good sponsors versus bad, has that changed your relationship with risk? Are you still an investor personally? And do you think that the platform has enhanced or pulled away from your abilities as an investor?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a funny question, right? I still have my own active properties and I built this because I needed this when I was considering becoming an LP. But I joke around that did I build myself out of an investment vehicle? Meaning like, would there be a perceived conflict of interest if I started investing in these companies? Yeah. And I don't think there is, but that's just like me being neurotic where if all of a sudden, no, yeah, there's a 5-star sponsor on here, but Pat's invested with them. Is that like a shady thing? So I haven't not touched an LP investment because of this. Like building this thing is my baby. But in terms of risk, no, I mean, I'm still very much, I would say, bullish on this industry. I hear things from people. You recognize patterns in investors. And let me be very clear. I didn't build this to be the GP Reaper. Like there's accountability on the investor side of things. I've talked to tons of investors that had no business making placements because they had no idea what they were doing. Does that change like the outcome or responsibility of the GP? No. But in reality, I've had people that just say, oh, hey, I bought into their influence and stroked $100,000 check. That you have ownership of that outcome then, right? Like you shouldn't have done that. You should have educated yourself more. Give you a more specific example. I had someone reach out to me that was like, hey, I'm losing 100% of my capital. I had no idea real estate could go to zero. Okay, well, the real estate's not going to zero. Like you had no understanding of the fundamentals of a capital stack. Like your portion, it was a 15% drop and you're wiped out, right? Like you didn't understand that was possible. You thought the asset had to go to zero in order for you to lose your money. Like you weren't educated enough to actually participate in this. And so when I think about risk, I think I've always been pretty risk averse, but no, I mean, my goal is, I don't think my views on this industry has changed at all. I think it's still a great thing to get into.
Do you invest as an LP or are you investing more kind of buying assets
Yeah.
just for yourself individually where you're 100% owner?
I'm personally buying like small multifamily myself. Yeah. I do plan on, I think once I get over the mindset that I shouldn't do this because of the platform, I'll start investing as an LP, but I'm still kind of like a little weary on it if I should or if I shouldn't. And if would that be weird? The day will come. I'm just like, I'm making a big deal about nothing and then I'll just start doing it again.
Where do you see the platform, let's say 3, 5 years from now? You know, given where we are with AI and the conversation we just had with SEO and GEO and more advanced placement for you. But where do you see, you kind of touched on this briefly with the openness in terms of LP communication, but
Yeah.
where do you see this going in the future for you and your partners, Pat,
Yeah.
and for LPs and GPs?
Yeah, totally. Like a highest level way to put this, we want to be a part of every single investment conversation, every single investment conversation. Like right now, we're heavily focused on the retail investor. We're heavily focused on the real estate industry. As we grow, we plan on, I'd say, like rolling out the bowling pin strategy when we're moving into other alternatives, like private equity, VC, things like that. Right now, we're what I would call like real estate and real estate adjacent. We're like, yeah, oil and gas is on here, senior living, which is like real estate plus balance sheet. So, or like real estate plus operations, I'm sorry. So, like, we're going to get more and more into other asset classes and then just kind of expand from there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And what would you say to one of our viewers? Let's, rewind back for yourself, maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago, but kind of putting yourself back in that place to one of our viewers that's thinking about throwing in the towel, saying, hey, this is just too difficult. My family's saying I should probably go get a safe, secure job. My wife's saying I'm taking on too much risk. They really have a dream and a vision, and the whole world's telling them that they can't do it. What advice, Pat Zingarella, would you give that person based on what you know today and what you've been through?
Yeah, it's a good question. And there's a couple layers to it. It could be the right move, right? Like it could be the right move. You have to do an honest analysis of your life and where you're at. I would say I've been through every one of those feelings. And I've always told people the psychological battle of entrepreneurship will get you way before like the execution fails. And if you can get through the fear, the doubt, the uncertainty, and stay convicted in your vision, the rewards, both on I would say like impact level, even and eventually financial, will outweigh any sort of negativity you're feeling. It is hard. No one could say, like, I think the idea of the golden handcuffs is kind of trash after a little while, right? I know plenty of people making 6 figures that have a good life and take off 30 days a year and have good insurance. I'll say I'm no longer that person. I couldn't live like that anymore. But the world of being comfortable with stress and uncertainty is not an easy thing to manage. I have downgraded every part of my life to do this, from a lifestyle standpoint to a where we're living to a how we're living. But I would say it's not an easy thing to do, right? It's not an easy thing to do, but like you could just push through it. The psychological aspect is 10 times worse than chasing down KPIs, right? If you can stay in tune with that mindset of why you're doing it, stay convicted of that vision, it's worth it. It's worth it. And it's funny, man. It's like, and I'll share a little bit about that for me is I've had that in tranches in the business. I've had in the early days of like, will anyone use this? Like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't have users as fast as I thought I would. Would people actually pay for this? Is this even valuable? Or am I just chasing down something that I thought would be important? Right. That has shifted now to an uncertainty and doubt where like, holy crap, like people are reaching out to me, telling me how valuable this is. And I have to grow this at a clip where it's like, I'm helping people. Like I can't stop helping people, and it's, I think also a reframe of that feeling doesn't go away. It just gets repositioned, right? It gets repositioned into something bigger and more important. And so getting comfortable with that uncertainty is important. I just kind of riffed there for a little bit, but I hope that answers your question.
No, I like that. A couple takeaways that I got from you is stay convicted with your vision and be comfortable in the uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I could certainly attest to that myself. You know, you go through these bumps in the road where you doubt yourself. Can I make this thing really happen? And you really do scale back on your lifestyle in a major way. You have to make sacrifices to get to where you want to go in this entrepreneurial life. But if those stay the course, and perhaps it's not for everybody, but if you really do have taken your advice, Pat, if you have conviction in your vision and you do stay the course and you fight it out, I think that you'll be glad that you fought the fight at the end of the day
Yeah,
rather than throwing in the towel.
I agree with you 100%.
And you're going to get uncomfortable along the way, and that's okay. Get comfortable being uncomfortable
Yeah.
is, I think, the point of it.
On top of that, too, I think I've started to realize that this is a character trait. Like, even if you feel right now when you start something and you feel like it's time to throw in the towel, you will come back to this feeling. Like, this feeling doesn't go away. If you eventually do, you shut down a business and you go back to a W-2, you're going to want to do it again. Like, I'm convinced of that.
Well, a wise man once told me that the pain of regret is far more than the pain of failure.
Yeah.
So even if you do throw in the towel, you're going to go back, years from now, and you're going to look back and say, what could have been?
Mm-hmm.
I think that pain, for me anyway, I'm just speaking for myself, that pain is far more intense than short-term failure, where I could get back up and try again and get back up and try again. And eventually, you know what? You're going to get there. As
Yeah.
long as you keep grinding away and as long as you don't give up and as long as you have conviction in that vision.
And conviction doesn't need to be, I would say this without sounding any sort of like any like negative, like this conviction, it'll be sustained, but like you can question it, but always sustain it. Like, I have doubts constantly over the long, and I would say there's short-term doubts, but over the long term, I'm extremely convicted, if that
Do you
makes
still
sense.
have doubts today?
Oh, of course, right? I have doubts. I don't have doubts in the business. I don't have doubts in the value. I always have doubts if I'm like making the right decision, right? And I think those are, I don't want to say they're minor. Luckily now I've got a team around me that I can bounce things off, right? But my doubts come more in the form of fear of it being taken away, if that makes sense. Meaning, like, it's funny. I have people that reach out to me that tell me how valuable this is, and I hope that doesn't sound arrogant, but it's like people that are reaching out that are saying, like, I use this every day. It's helped me make a decision, something like that. And so I think about pulling it away from them. If they're using this as a critical part of their due diligence, and it's my fault that gets taken away, like, that's the level of heaviness that I have in my mind on a daily basis. Is like, I can't be the guy that prevents them from like eliminating a certain layer of risk. You know what I mean? That's where my doubt comes from, if that's even doubt.
What do you think would take away your moat, if we want to call it that today, and invest clearly? Would it be a competitor? Would it be AI? If
It's a
anything
good,
could, what could take away your business?
yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. And I'm not saying that, I mean, I'm sure a competitor could be something that happens, right? Like, everybody's got to face competition. And to give you an example, like, we had competition really early. Like, when I built Invest Clearly, I remember the day I launched it, I was at Bigger Pockets conference in Florida, and I sat down with Scott Trench. And the day I launched this, he showed me Passive Pockets was like a carbon copy of what I'd been building for 9 months, right? I'm two guys or three guys building this platform on a shoestring budget, and then, like, what, a $500 million company that's the number that has the most notoriety in real estate investing is building the exact same thing. I almost threw up on the table, right? And so, like, I think I've become comfortable with competition after that moment, because I was terrified. Like, I was terrified in that moment that everything I had done for 9 months was going out the window. But it ended up being two completely different business plans. One was like community based and one was a review platform based. And I think I got in my head. So I don't know what the answer to that is. I think kind of TBD, hopefully no matter what happens, we can pivot, right? Luckily, we've got the foundation, right? We have built the foundation, and it is difficult to get to where we've gotten on the review side of things. It's very difficult. Can someone spin up and Invest Clearly in AI in probably 30 minutes? Yes. Can they then have the reviews on there and like the trust of the investors in that? Definitely not. Like, that's what's been hard, is really earning the trust of the investors. Like, why should I share this on your site? And what will it do for me and others? And I think that's our moat, right? I don't think it's a feature. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think that's very valuable. Owning a piece of the consumer's mind when they think about ranking, whether it be a real estate sponsor or some sponsor level deal, that they go to you like they would, let's say, the Yellow Pages in 1985. That is a moat and a half right there.
Yeah.
And if you could hold on to that, I think you could build something pretty exceptional. And the way we found out about you, by the way, was LPs.
Yeah.
I think you are an LP facing definitely platform. I think you're just at the beginning stages. So I hope you build something exceptional, and it's great to be a part of what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's awesome.
So if anybody wants to reach out to you and learn more about what you're doing at Invest Clearly, what would be the best way for them to do that, Pat?
Sure. My email address is pat@investclearly.com. The site is investclearly.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Well, inspirational conversation to say the least. I hope it was valuable to our listeners. It certainly was valuable to me, and really appreciate you coming on the show today. And I wish you tons of success in the future, Pat.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on. This was great.
My pleasure. Thank you.